all of its major components, with Democratic lawmakers in the U.S. Senate saying they just don't have the votes. So what's next for the future of clean energy? Here to discuss is author and investigative journalist Webster Tarpley. Mr. Tarpley, as always, let's talk about this bill. 3:30 this afternoon, they just announced basically everything, cap and trade, all the major components that people were looking forward to seeing from these environmental groups. This is not in here. What do you think is happening?
Well, the average person was not looking forward to this if they knew anything about it, because it amounts to a tax of about $1 trillion on productive activity. Anybody who needs oil or gasoline for heating or for driving a car, running a tractor, transporting goods, running a railway, $1 trillion on that. So this is an idea that appeals to rich elitists, like somebody like Senator Kerry, right? He's the sponsor. It's Kerry Lieberman, and if we could pronounce this dead and drive a stake through its heart, that would be a great thing, but I'm afraid not.
Majority Leader Harry Reid said the realities of the Senate calendar and the mood of Congress before elections were sort of the main reasons why they weren't able to get the votes.
Right, and also that there's a popular revulsion against this thing, because the whole global warming theory, which it's based on, is now widely discredited because of these charlatans and quackademics who were exchanging those emails. Let me just point out, though, the period of maximum danger is November, December of this year. That's the period of the lame ducks. We could say the period of the dead souls, not the dead souls of Gogol, but the dead souls of the Democratic Party, because there are going to be 30 or 40 or maybe 50 Democratic congressmen who have lost their seats. They've been repudiated by the public. They're going to be looking either to Wall Street to become a director, to become a consultant. They're going to be looking for patronage jobs in the Obama administration. And the strategy of this Obama regime is to bring in a cartload of horrendous legislation and try again in November and December to ram that through, using to these people who have nothing left to lose.
I will say, though, the majority leader included, a lot of these senators have said, we're just going to try for this in the next Congress. Nobody's saying anything about trying.
Watch out.
You think we should keep our eyes open for that?
Keep your vigilance.
Capitol Hill is not the only place that this issue is being discussed. There was a summit in town this week, a climate summit. Let's talk about this and what you think this was all about. Certainly they were here to discuss the future of things like clean energy.
Well, it's a dubious gathering. It's the first ever clean energy ministerial, meaning the energy ministers or secretary of energy or sometimes mining minister, depending on the country, attended by 24 governments. One day was secret on what they talked about there. I have an idea. But what they talked about, of course, is renewable energy, alternative energy, green jobs, solar, wind, batteries, electric cars. They want to have more efficient TV sets, lamps, and things like this, less fossil fuels, low carbon. But to give you an idea of the spirit of this thing, the conference agreed that the world actually needs 500 nuclear energy plants, 500 power stations of some kind. And their conclusion was, let's not build them. Let's avoid them. Let's try to get some solar cells here and there. Let's try to get a few windmills. Now, the big problem with this, and this is the purpose of this conference, is that these forms of energy are not economical unless and until the price of oil doubles, say, from what it is now. Then it might be economical. But in the meantime, these people depend on subsidies from taxpayers and governments in a depression. They are rent seekers in the technical term. So they're all looking for largesse from governments, and of course they want to build up the threat, the global warming, the carbon threat, and all the rest of this. What they're trying to do is line their pockets. So we had academics of this Malthusian type, the radical environmentalist type. We had government officials, and then we had these rent seekers, and that's pretty much what the conference was.
Well, let's talk about, I mean, certainly it doesn't look like anything in terms of new laws and new regulations are going to be put into place here anytime soon. But the United States is not the only country that's talking about this. Certainly we see countries like China and Japan. What do you see happening there? A lot of people are thinking that China's going to take the lead on this.
Yeah, and that's actually already happened. That was the big headline in the Wall Street Journal on, I think, the second day of this conference was, China passes U.S. as energy consumer. China is now the #1 consumer of energy in the world, and this is absolutely rapid progress. 10 years ago, China consumed 1/2 of the energy of the United States. Now they've exceeded the U.S. by 4%. Now that's the consumption side. If you look at the production side, which is where things really get interesting, the Chinese are in the process of building 1,000 megawatts of energy, of electrical power over 15 years. It includes 21 nuclear reactors. They are, in other words, building as much energy as the U.S. now produces. They'll build in 15 years. So by 2025, Chinese will have left the United States in the dust. They're also going to pass the U.S. as the #1 manufacturing country. This is from 1890, when the U.S. passed the British. The U.S. has been the #1 manufacturing country. That palm is also going to now go to the Chinese. So you'd think that a rational government would say, well, don't we want to gear up? I mean, don't we want to give them a run for their money, a peace race of some kind? No, no. Well, if you look at the U.S. delegation, it's made up of people who want energy to be more expensive, people who basically hate the production of energy. So it's not surprising the Chinese move ahead. Notice, the Chinese come to conference and talk about green jobs, meaning if the U.S. wants to throw away their money on this stuff, we're glad to relieve them of it. Right? Yeah, sure. Let's look at the U.S. Energy Secretary, example, Stephen Chu. Now, he should be saying, let's build 100 nuclear reactors and keep up with the Chinese. No. His idea is to paint the world white. His discovery, he used to be a scientist, now he's an ideologue, is that we have these roads that are covered with black tar, right? And that's got to become white. Your roof has to become white so the world becomes cooler. That's his approach.
Certainly an interesting concept, as always. Author and investigative journalist Webster Tarpley.